Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com, and in this video I'm going to review the Capital One Platinum Mastercard. But before I do that, I would ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So I realized recently that I have talked about the Capital One Platinum Mastercard in other videos that we've had on this channel, but I've never actually done a video specific to this card, and so this video is going to right that wrong. We're going to take a little deeper dive, talk about who this card is good for, what is good about it, what is maybe not so good about it, what some other options might be instead of this card. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is that name. The Capital One Platinum Mastercard is about as far from what you would think of as platinum as you could possibly get. This is a no-frills card, no rewards, very few benefits actually. So if you are, seeing this card and thinking, oh, I might qualify for a platinum card, you should know that you're not really getting much in the way of what you would think of as platinum benefits. Now, what this card really is more of a starter card for people that are either building or maybe rebuilding their credit histories if you've had problems in the past or if you're fairly new to credit. From that perspective, it can be a great card. It could be your first unsecured credit card, or your first unsecured credit card if you're coming off of having to rebuild your credit with secured cards. It may be the easiest unsecured credit card to get from a major bank. So from that perspective, I'm not really knocking the card. It really does have its place. But in terms of that name, calling it a platinum credit card is really a huge euphemism. There's really nothing platinum about it in terms of the features of the card. So let's look at those features and talk about it further. First of all, like I said, this is an unsecured card, which normally you would think is no big deal. But if you are somebody that has had some credit problems in the past and you've had to put down a security deposit for other credit cards, that could be an attractive thing. If you're someone that's building credit and you've used secured cards to get you to wherever you are now, this card may be the next card for you. An unsecured card and a card with no annual fee. So not only do you not have to put a security deposit down for the card, you don't have to pay an annual fee for the card either. In terms of credit lines for this card, for most people, if they're looking at this card, they're probably not going to get a huge credit line. Capital One says the minimum credit line is $300. Depending on where your credit history is, you might get a little bit more than that to start. The good news is that Capital One does, go out of its way to tell you that if you make your first 5 payments on time after getting the card, you will get a credit line increase. So you actually can get a bigger credit line in a fairly short period of time if you get this card and you use it responsibly, which is good news. Now, this card, in terms of approvals, I've already said it's sort of, a card that maybe you might use if you were rebuilding your credit or if you don't have a long credit history. Capital One actually classifies it as being for average credit customers, although what Capital One sort of, uses as their definition of average credit is, to me, sort of really along the line of bad credit. One of the possibilities for someone with average credit is if you can say yes to this statement, which is, I've defaulted on a loan in the last 5 years. So obviously, if you defaulted on a loan in the last 5 years, you probably don't have great credit. So there is the possibility that you could get this card even if you have defaulted on a loan in the past 5 years, which is not going to be true, for most cards from any major banks. And they also say, as part of their definition, if you are someone that has a limited credit history, less than 3 years, maybe this would be the credit card for you, at least in terms of cards that Capital One offers. But those are, fairly low bars to acceptance there. So if you are someone that is looking at this card and you're building or rebuilding your credit history, this is a card that, oftentimes, is one that is probably the most likely for you to be approved for, at least from one of the major banks. In terms of the interest rate here, it kind of moves around in terms of how this offer is put out there in the market. The last time I saw it, they were showing a 26.99% interest rate. Sometimes I see rates like, I don't know, a range of 22 to 27 or something in that area. No matter how you slice it, you're going to be paying at least over 20% interest on this card if you ever carry a balance, which is a good reason not to carry a balance because obviously that's a very high interest rate. Like I said earlier, there are no rewards on this card. There also is no bonus opportunity. So if you're looking at this card, you're not going to get some, cash bonus for, using it X amount of times in the first few months or anything of that nature. This is a no-frills card, and its audience is really people that are trying to sort of, move up the ladder in terms of going from a place where they either didn't have much credit or didn't have very good credit and, increase that credit score and get to a better place. This card, like all Capital One cards, has no foreign transaction fees, so if you get it and you travel overseas, you could use this card without having to pay any extra on your purchases, where many cards charge you 3% on your purchases. So that is a good thing that Capital One has on all of their cards, and so, good for Capital One as far as that is concerned. So overall, there's not really anything to recommend this card, but it is sort of a stepping stone card, like I have said, for people that are trying to move up from a place where maybe you had secured cards because you had, not a very good credit history, or you have a limited credit history. This is a card that many people use as a stepping stone to better cards, and there are many people that have great fondness for this card because they are thankful to Capital One for having approved them when they had a difficult time getting approved elsewhere. So if you have a little shaky credit or you have limited credit, this could be your best shot at getting to the next level, especially if you want to avoid those, kind of bad, shady cards in the middle that charge you, super high fees and super high rates and everything else. Here you can get a no annual fee card from a major credit card company. So obviously that is a good feature, even if it doesn't have the platinum benefits that you might want. Now, if you are considering this card, I would say that there are a couple other cards that you might also want to think about as well. If you got this card as sort of a solicitation in the mail, or maybe you got an email about it or whatever it is, and you're just looking at this card and you're in that place where you're trying to build your credit or rebuild it, there are a couple other places that I would consider. Well, one of them actually is Capital One. Capital One also has a card called the Quicksilver One card that does have a $39 annual fee, but it gives you 1.5% in rewards, cash back on everything that you buy with the card. So depending on how much you might use the card over the course of a year, that card might be better for you, and it also has a fairly low bar in terms of acceptance. So you might end up being a little bit ahead rewards-wise with that card if you used it enough over the course of the year to make up for that $39 annual fee. Another place I would consider going is looking at Discover. Discover's IT card and some of its other cards are known to look at people who have a little bit lower credit scores. I think Discover IT might be a little bit little higher than what we're talking about here with the Capital One Platinum Mastercard, but it might be a place to look as well. The good thing is at both Capital One and at Discover, they have pre-approval things on their websites where you can go in, put your name in, your social security number, some stuff about you, and they will spit back the cards that they think that they would approve you for if they actually went to a further application. So you always can go and check those out and see how it is looking with Capital One or with Discover. So if you're in this place where you're considering the Capital One Platinum Mastercard, by all means, go on their site and see what that pre-approval tells you. And I would also say go on to Discover's site and check it out with them too. That is a good place to start if you're trying to make that jump from either bad credit or limited credit, maybe secured cards, up to the next level. So that is it. Thanks for watching. As always, please go to proudmoney.com, where we do credit card reviews and have personal finance news and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thanks for watching. Bye.